What's up, everyone? We're back. Another epic episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show. And look, I'm telling you now, guys, look, we're going to get all the epic guests for you. So today, we've got a living legend himself. Introduce yourself, please, bro.
Hey, I'm Alex Simo. You may know me from I work on the Nim Nim YouTube channel. I've been it's me MBT. I've been having a good time recently, streaming, making videos, and also dipping my feet into the world of podcasting. This is not easy. I thought it was going to be really easy.
Yeah, people actually are surprised how hard it is to keep a conversation going for an hour.
Yeah.
But that does remind me, I do actually want to talk about how we actually came to getting you as a guest, MBT.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know, MBT Peeps and Lou Von Karma have a podcast called Will of the Council, which you should definitely check out after listening to this episode. MBT, for anyone who hasn't listened to it, how would you describe it?
We judge people online. That's the thrust of the thing.
Yes.
And a lot of the time, those people come from, I guess, the bastion of online geniuses that is Reddit.com. And y'all reached out to me being like, I notice you have stolen the entire premise of our show. It's like, oh, whoops, our bad.
I want to clarify that was complete and 100% sarcasm. We don't own Reddit. I just thought it would be a funny way of getting the sort of extending the arrow. And I was genuinely surprised you messaged me back, because if I'd have read that message, I would have just told myself to fuck off. But no.
Regardless, I am here as penance. I am paying my dues.
Thank you so much for taking time out, Joseph. In particular, this is a big episode for me. You're my personal favorite YouTuber and content creator, so I'm going to try and be as normal as possible on this episode. Try and not embarrass myself.
Yes, but funnily enough, the topic you just brought up about podcasting, I do want to slip into that later, but I always like to start off by just asking our guests. So, Joe, can you give us a bit of a run through of what got you into starting on YouTube and Yu-Gi-Oh in general, and kind of what your journey has been like?
Yeah, sure. So with Yu-Gi-Oh, I guess it's the same as everybody else. Like I played as a kid, since '02, baby. I was very lucky to have a local around me where people were super welcoming to kids, and myself and my brother would go there pretty frequently until we got too busy, and got priced out during dad format as well. The classic.
Yeah.
Then late high school, early college, I hopped back in. This was like wind up format. And then really hit the ground competitively again in like 2015 into 2016. The Burning Abyss, Monarch, Cosmo, Pepe format, which remains one of my favorites. It's a lot of fun. And around that time, I was this is how I ended up on YouTube. I was playing a lot of card games and such, Magic the Gathering as well. And I wanted to do something with my free time because I had just graduated. I moved to New York City. I was pursuing acting. So I was just like burning through my savings, and picking up like shifts at like Olive Garden and shit. And what that would saddle me with is like, because auditions and practices were like at night, the days I wasn't scheduled, I was literally just like sitting and like doing nothing. And so I just started like recording some YouTube videos just to like kind of keep my performance ability sharp, and that ended up going on, to where I am now. Very, very slow, gradual process. I think I was making videos for like under 1,000 people for like 18 months at least, and then in 2018, Alex Simo saw a video of mine and put me on the YugiTuber Grand Championship when that still existed. The channel kind of took off from that position, and then in 2020, I got furloughed for COVID and figured I would use the like 7 unemployment checks that we all got stacked up all right next to each other, and I would see if I couldn't make this work. And people were super supportive, and I was able to do it, and I'm doing it to this day and loving it.
What was it like? I would say so. I think that COVID example as well is especially something that's pertinent to a lot of us. Like for a lot of people, it's like you got chucked a bunch of money, but then it's also like you don't even know what's the plan. Like for some people, they got furloughed, some people got made redundant. What was it like, kind of putting it all into? Were you married at that point? Were you already married at that point, or were you not in a relationship at that point?
I was not married, but we were engaged. We actually called the wedding off, like early into COVID, just because we just assumed that it would be impossible because of what was going on. But no, I had plans to get married, but it was. I mean, we all know it was horrifying being like, all the money has dried up immediately. Good luck. And I remember I was living with Danny at the time. He's Luke Von Karma from the podcast, and my wife, then my fiance, came to live with us because we weren't sure if we were going to be able to move between states because there were different COVID guidelines between states. So day one of lockdown, she drove over, 3 of us in a cramped ass apartment, and I'm like, for 4 or 5 hours a day, I'd be like, all right, you two are the most important people in the world to me. I'm going to just go into another room and scream about this card called Access Code Talker, and I need you to be as quiet as possible because we haven't soundproofed the apartment. And they were very understanding, if not a little irritated. But it was a horrifying time. I mean, it really felt, I don't know. It's when your feet are to the fire, sometimes you find motivation out of nowhere. And everyone is always talks about it's hard to remain motivated on YouTube and stuff. And I'm like, well, the first time I really took it super seriously, I was going to starve if it didn't work. So the motivation was there.
Yeah. And
motivation was there.
And I know you said it was a bit of a slow growth, but was there a point when it really felt like, you know what, I've made it, I've started to be there? Was there a point that came along for you?
It was, yes. It was I would say probably August of 2020. Because I had made a bunch of life plans expecting that the channel would just be a hobby forever. And in August, the channel was blossoming kind of to a position where it was impeding my other life plans. And I was like, oh God, this is now real enough that I have to start making a decision about how much time I want to invest in this versus how much time I want to invest in these other plans I made years ago when I didn't really know what I wanted. And yeah, that was it for me. But I think a lot of people kind of think that these big YouTube channels, they overnight just have this huge successful break. And while certainly a lot of people were very instrumental in getting eyes on me, Hardleg Gaming, super, super important. Alex, of course, it really was this slow, perpetual slog for almost my entire YouTube career. Of just for a long time just making content to no one, and that's hard to stomach.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree. I think that really speaks to a lot of I can even say something. I feel sometimes you're making a video, and even sometimes you feel like you put your all into it, and then it's 50 views. It's well, on to the next one, I guess. So you got to keep the same. So yeah, I definitely do get that.
Definitely, I remember, Joseph, I think the first time I watched your channel, it would have been around Goki format. I think it was a 10-minute testing video of yours got recommended to me, and I liked the format of it. So I saw the growth of the channel over COVID and stuff, and it was insane. It was nuts to see you with the huge names of YouTube at the time, your CMOs, your Team Sams, what have you. So I think what you said there was really important about just making sure you keep the grind going, and even if you're not, even if you feel like you're only paying attention, there's no one paying attention, there's always going to be people paying attention. And yeah, I'm rambling a little bit here, but let's.
No, I remember during that period, 2018, Burning Abyss was randomly a deck for a weekend. It's that Block Dragon BA deck. I remember I made a Burning Abyss profile, and just because the deck was super novel, it got something 5K views. And I remember looking at this as a channel that had 500 subs and thinking I will never ever make anything that reaches that many people again.
Yeah,
that's why
I was like, that's it. I'm just going to spend the rest of my life chasing exactly this number. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, definitely. But then that's the funny thing, because again, it's you say, it's even though you might have that feeling, it's not like you stopped. It's like you said, you've been pretty consistent, just uploading and pushing along for all of this time. So I guess at that time during COVID, it's like the motivation is like, yeah, I'm going to starve. I'm not doing it. But what would you say pushes you now to still doing it, to still carry on and still push so hard with YouTube?
Oh, same concept. No, it's like it's it is my job now, and it is like how I'm able to keep the lights on. But honestly, from this position, it was nice to see like
Never thought I'd get to do this again.
kind of the. I don't want to wear this. It was pretty much everything that I thought YouTube could do for me is something that I have since like kind of gone beyond, and it really does kind of feel like I do operate under this sort of background anxiety that at some point we'll have like an adpocalypse, or there will be some kind of like a lever that gets changed in terms of how you can make money online, and the whole thing could theoretically crumble. So I'm like, well, I got to get in while the getting's good. So
yeah, of course.
you know.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to ask you, Joseph, is for those of you who don't know, you are pursuing a career in law, right?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to law school. I'm part-time. I'll be done, I think, end of next year.
Yeah. How are you finding the balance between being like a big content creator and, those personal goals?
Oh, very bad. It's not good at all. It was... I went full-time for my first year, and that was a huge mistake. It had huge implications for, like, the channel, of course, but also, like, my mental health, my interpersonal relationships.
Sure.
And going part-time has been better, but it's still rough because, law is something that people kind of expect you to put your everything into. The reason I'm still doing it is because the way law school works is once you start doing law school, you have to finish within a certain number of years, or else bar association won't grant you like admittance. So if I ever want to practice law, it's not like I can just like table it and come back to it when I'm like 45 or something. I have to get it done now.
Okay.
Which is, I mean, it's upsetting, but it's definitely been something that like YouTube is a lot of time management already. So
Yeah, definitely. And I like asking this question to almost any big YouTuber who comes on, which is, if you were starting again, what are some things you would do differently to make your journey easier, or to make your channel better, even to make your life easier as well, to be fair?
That is a really, really good question. I guess the turning point for me was when I started putting like, it's weird, really old 10-minute testings do not have skits in them. And basically the day I started putting skits in them, that they started getting way more popular. So I feel as if a significant amount of YouTube is sort of trusting yourself that you do have some skills and like wielding them in a way that you expect other people won't be able to. A lot of my early stuff is like me basically aping like Lithium's content exactly. And if you are putting like a sub 500 subscriber YouTuber in a age match with Lithium, who's been doing this for a decade, like that comparison doesn't necessarily come out good for you. So I think a lot of people get excited to make a type of video that they like watching rather than a type of video that they have the skills and are capable of making, and do themselves a huge disservice in that. If I was doing it again, I would definitely do that. And I would also like do less. I think that like certainly now I'm putting out like a video a day, but back in the day I was also putting out a video a day, and not all of them were good. I think that being more realistic about what I can remain healthy and make would have helped me out a great deal.
Oh, I felt like Dan, I don't have a question, but Dan, do you have one there, or I'll let you?
No, I was just going to say, like, some really valid points there. To be fair, I think every creator's been in this, no matter how big they are, has been in a space where they're just pushing out content and they feel like it's maybe a little bit for the sake of just pushing out content. So, yeah, just very relatable points there, I think. Fabs, you wanted to land?
It was, well, my next question was going to be, is there someone, for example, you've mentioned a couple of people like Hardleg, like Simo, who have kind of helped you and gave you that bit of a boost up, but is there anyone in the community who, for example, you look at their content and you're like, this is, or even not even necessarily in the community, it could be wider YouTube, you look at their content and it's like, this is who I want to be like this is what I target to when I want to have the best content?
That's a good question. In terms of Yu-Gi-Oh YouTube, when I was first starting, it was definitely Lithium 2300. I thought his videos are pretty simple, but I really just liked the thought process behind it, because like the cross bandlist cup videos, for instance, were going up at a time when Yu-Gi-Oh players were basically just like format after format after format. And I thought those were really sick. I really like it's so weird to have this discussion now. Like, having it back in the day, I would be able to say like, oh, you know, I really like Farfa's videos, I really like Alex videos, but like, we're all kind of making the same kind of videos, right? So I guess the people whose videos I really think are interesting but are different than what Yu-Gi-Oh has right now is, I really like let me see if I can remember the name.
Are you gonna say Fi?
Well, no. I mean, yes, but no. I do really like Fi's content. I think he does a great job, like telling stories, which I think is important in Yu-Gi-Oh. I really like Yu-Gi-Oh's stuff. I think it's like really well edited, like just single issue videos. I think are really good. And I don't think it all has to be like top tier editing type stuff. Sometimes I just like personalities or hearing people riff. I really like the stuff put out by the Curry Bandits. I think is really funny.
I love their channel.
Dimax Yu-Gi-Oh, who I think is putting out like a whole bunch of Raid Raptor videos. Really just like a screen recorder on an Edo Pro replay, but is really enjoyable to just sit back and watch. And I think a lot of the pioneers in the space are doing shorts. That's something that like I definitely am trying to improve on. In Yu-Gi-Oh, obviously, you know, Sam, head-to-head battles, really big shorts tubers. But outside Yu-Gi-Oh, I really like the food YouTuber circles' shorts. I find really interesting.
Sort of like making a dish and talking over it, talking about their day or things like that.
Yeah.
There's a specific guy, I can't remember what his name is, but he's like, I think he's like Egyptian or something, and it's like he's one that I watch a lot. I watch his shorts come up on my feed a lot because, and I like watching food as well, so there's that advantage as well of it. But I think it's interesting because again, it's like if you look, I would say from my perspective, just going back to what I was asking you before, like as a small YouTuber, I look at channels like yours and I'm like, okay, like what are they doing that I'm not doing? And it's like, what can I figure out that would help my channel? And it's really interesting to see your perspective of the channels that you look at and you have that thought process with, because sometimes, for example, if I was to look at your channel, like I know, and even when you made the comment that you and Simo and I can't remember who else you said are like doing the same videos, I'd even still say no. There's like, I'd actually say specifically yourself as well. For example, I feel like there's a twist in your videos that is distinct enough. For example, like I wouldn't, if I'm going to an MBT video, there's a certain personality and there's a certain type of joke, that I wouldn't necessarily expect in our videos. So I'd even say you still have that difference. And it's, I mean,
Simo is not going to say bussy, like we all know. That.
But then even and then even things like sometimes the rogue decks, the 10-minute testing, I think is probably like for me one of the biggest things. Like it's useful. There's decks that I know I wouldn't see on I'm not going to see it on Joshua Schmidt's stream because he's a competitive player focus on that I know I can go into yours 10-minute testing and I know I'm already going to get content from that, which is really awesome. Like that's probably like my favorite content that you do. But moving into more of a meta discussion, guys, the Fire Nation has finally arrived. Phantom Nightmare.
I know.
It's
arrived in Master Duel as well, right?
Weirdly,
sorta.
Like it's weird in Master Duel. I literally just got finished building a Rescue Ace deck, but there's no emergency or preventer, but I do have the Abel Star. And it's weird. But the first events of Phantom Nightmare have started. So have either of you guys gone to any events or anything yet? For this one?
I Not outside of locals. I went, I think, last week, but no. I'm not like a regionals guy. I really just like don't like them, but I'm super excited for like the YCS season. I'm really invigorated by this format. I think it's super interesting.
You know, on that topic, by the way, I'm really jealous at how many YCSs America gets, and right now we're in a drought in Europe. Like,
I didn't really conceptualize it till one of my friends said Europe doesn't have a confirmed YCS till September.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awful.
It is horrible. Like,
oh no.
Literally, I went to 64. Well, and our regionals aren't. We were talking to Callie.
It varies, right? It varies.
Yeah, some regionals like are nice, but for example, I went to a 64-man regional, and it's like I'm looking on YouTube, and it's like people are talking about 500-man like regionals and stuff they're going to, and I'm like, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Like
I was talking to Eva about the Chicago Ritual. That one sounded insane. Like it was so over capacity and
yeah.
The Chicago regionals always like that. They always book a venue that's too small, and they always don't cap it early enough, and it's always a disaster. But they don't change it. It's like that in America too, in that like frequently Midwest regionals will get like maybe 150 people, but like when you're on a coast, it can be anywhere from like 3 to 1,000 depending on the importance of it.
Yeah,
I remember the Philly regional was always about a 500-person event, and that was always a blast.
Yeah, like that's like our nationals or like our open, like that's the kind of level for that. Which is, I'd love to have events like. But I did go. I went to an event this weekend, and I can definitely say, practically playing those fire decks is it's an interesting experience. I'll be honest. I really hate tier 0 formats personally. I would call this a tier 0 format. I know a lot of people wouldn't. And it really felt... I was playing one of those fire decks. I'm playing Rescue Ace, Diabell Star Shenanigans. And it just felt really, really unfair. Like, so many times it was just like, I'd open a hand, it's like Bonfire, Wanted, Talents, and it's like, I don't even know what... I have to really misplay to lose against... Which I did, by the way. I did terribly in that regional. I have to really misplay to lose this game. Like, it was really crazy. Unless you're against another fire deck, in which case it just becomes a very, very interactive and fun game, but...
Yeah, I in terms of like the meta, I don't think it's necessarily a tier 0 format, but I do think that any deck that can utilize Bonfire, Diabell Star, Poplar, like, is a head and shoulders above the rest. I haven't got any regionals coming up. I was meant to be doing quite a few this month, but unfortunately, real life has sadly gotten in the way. Honestly, though, I'm feeling pretty good about Yu-Gi-Oh right now. It seems like. This seems like one of the more positive tier 0 formats in a weird way, because it's not specifically, just Fire King. There's a lot of different, like you were saying about the Rescue Ace, there's a lot of different variations for it. It does feel a lot more open-ended. Maybe that's me coping a little bit on some degree, I don't know, but honestly, this is the most positive I've felt about a tier 0 format in a while. Joseph, how are you feeling about it? Like, obviously, you've been testing it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo, I guess, a lot of the same stuff. I don't feel... I really... It doesn't strike me as like a tier 0 in the same capacity that like Tier Limit does, but I guess I remember like pre-Agov, post-Dune format that was like Unchained Pearly, Rescue Ace, Kashtira, tier. When I was testing for that, it became clear that like Unchained was far and away the best deck, and you had to kind of be making deck building assumptions like based around the fact that you would be hitting Unchained and it would be represented more than anything else in Top Cut. And because it operated on such a specific like axis, like you can't really pop the monsters, it necessitated like a complete overhaul of like what your deck is aiming to do from a linear perspective. And all that said and done, the deck ended up getting like 25% of like a Top Cut.
Yeah.
But it feels similarly here where like it's probably not going to eat like 90% of the Top Cut, but you're going to be like playing specific decks, specific strategies, and making main deck considerations based on the fact that like you're going to be hitting exactly, the Fire King strategy. You're going to be staring down Diabell Star like with 90% consistency. The problem is, and it's not exactly the problem we had in tier, but the problem is that the Snake Eye decks are just so goddamn fun.
Yeah.
They are so fun to play.
Very, very fun.
they feel like they can adapt to anything. They have so many decision points. You can obfuscate information based on how you play the turn. You can make inferences based on how your opponent plays the turn. I love the Fire King build. I love the Pure. I like the Rescue Ace one as well. And I appreciate that they're not so dominant that, like in tier format, the only other thing you can play is like this insanely frustrating stun deck playing like main deck shifter and stuff. There are other options. Like I think Voiceless Voice is going to be fine, like this format.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know. I am very excited about it too. I've been having a lot of fun playing the Fire King version specifically.
It's interesting. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no, yeah, you go, bro.
It's interesting to hear you echo similar thoughts that like for a tier 0 format, this feels like incredibly fun. Like I'm not playing a tier 0 format. A tier 0 deck, but I'm playing into these tier 0 decks, and I've got an okay matchup with what I'm playing. But it still feels fun. It feels interactive, right? It feels very back and forth. Some of the players are telegraphed, and it does. I do think this is going to be a format where players' skill level will shine through, which is something that I've seen in locals I've been to and testing with friends. But Fabs, you had something that you wanted to say before I got into another question.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it's funny because, again, I'm having loads of fun as well, and I do think this is a more healthy... So the reason why I think this is a tier 0 format is because I think there's a tier 0 engine / set of cards that... If your deck's not playing that, in general, if you're equal skill level with your opponent and they don't have some crazy, unfairly bricky hand, you'll probably beat them. And to me, that is enough of a definite. If I open wanted resolving does more than pretty much any other card in the format, bonfire, blah blah, etc. The interesting thing though is, I'm really enjoying this format compared to tier, but I'm really worried that I'm biased because I'm playing my favorite Rescue Ace is my favorite deck of all time. So I'm really worried that I'm enjoying this, and then there's a bunch of other people who are sitting there this is crap because I don't want to spend the money. But the other thing I was going to mention as well is Voiceless Voice. I love ritual decks as well. I'm really upset because Voiceless Voice to me has just become this floodgate turbo deck, and it really, really gets on my nerves. Every Voiceless player is siding in summon limit. They're summoning Jowgen on my turn. All of this, and I'm like, is this
Jowgen?
Yeah, Branded Fusion.
Jowgen thing is so funny. It's adorable.
And yeah, you go for it, Joe.
I will say it does suck that summon limit is still legal. I know it's very visible now, but I feel like last format there weren't any events, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But everyone kind of was playing it in boards, and summon limit and droll. I'm just God, if these cards were not legal, this format
it would be a lot better.
Would just be a lot more interesting, I feel like.
One thing I would say, so on the Jowgen thing, basically in Voiceless they play Branded Fusion, and that gets it.
Build.
And then what makes it even better is that because Jowgen is light, you can't target it and you can't attack it while they have a ritual monster on the board. So it's a hard to out Jowgen. But what's interesting is that I was just going somewhere with this and I've forgotten now. It can't be that important. I'll remember it. But I definitely would say that this format compared to last June format, while it's less diverse, I'll still say from the perspective of someone who's playing competitive, I agree with the skill thing as well. It definitely does feel like a lot higher skill format, and it doesn't feel as dice rolly. Oh, that's what I was getting. For example, with Snake Eye, even though I don't like draw and I don't like summon limit, one thing I really like about Snake Eye is it's not a deck that your turn ends when you're drawed. Sometimes your turn will end. If you open Bonfire and no extenders, your turn will end. But if you open a Snake Eye Ash, there are 3 or 4 combo lines through draw, which I think is really cool. I think that's how decks should be designed. I think it's a problem because it's one of the few decks that can actually do that. But it's like you said, it is really fun where I actually feel it doesn't really matter what my opponent opens, I'm going to get to play this game. I'm going to get to interact unless they change shifter. So yeah, it is quite good to be fair. Yeah,
it's definitely a lot more fun. I think looking back, I actually think the last half of 2023 was pretty ass format wise, but maybe that's just my personal opinion. But moving on to you look like you're about to disagree.
I'm
with that.
personally offended because it was Rescue Ace format. I just feel
I'm sorry, bro.
I'm personally offended, but
I don't think it's that the decks were bad. I don't think the decks were the problem. I think it was just too diverse. It was too wide of a sort of circle. But anyway, I did want to ask you, Joseph, because anyone who's follows you on Twitter will know that you've been taking the game a lot more seriously than you have been. Investing in things like coaching, like you're really grinding for that top. How are you finding the balance between like being a content creator for Yu-Gi-Oh and just wanting to become the best player that you can? You've mentioned obviously with the 10-minute testing, you kind of have like a very good knowledge of what every deck does, so that must help in a way. But it must also have like its. Well, talk to us about it.
Yeah. No, I've been pretty open about like I think the way that TMT works, I end up with like an almost unmatched like breadth of knowledge. I'm like, oh yeah, here's what all the decks do, but a really, really lacking like depth of knowledge. In terms of like what's necessary to win a mirror, for instance, and it has sucked to be like, all right, I have to spend a bunch of time like grinding Yu-Gi-Oh not for content reasons, but it's one of those things that it is when you do like content creation for a living, as I'm sure you've experienced, that sometimes it feels like when you're like sitting down and recording or playing something, you could be like, oh, like this probably should be some sort of monetizable content for me. And it's nice to have like a way to play Yu-Gi-Oh that I know is not going to be that. It's cool to like sit down and load onto DB and be like, okay, there's just no way I could squeeze any money out of this. And I don't know. It's been nice.
Does it sort of invigorate your love for the game more, do you think?
Yeah, depending on, I guess, what comes of it. There are definitely like I remember like last year during like Philly format, I was like, I'm going to go hard on testing, and I did, and it just made me depressed because it was the worst format of all time. It was like the Kashtira v Super Heavy Samurai format. I was like, this is terrible. It's awful. And sometimes it's cool to try and like be competitive even in a format that's not very good. I've been playing a lot of like Tengu Plant for the Time Wizard event at the Las Vegas YCS, and I don't think that format is enjoyable, but it's fun like as like a puzzle would be. And yeah, but it certainly is it does I guess I would say like increase the amount of satisfaction I get from playing Yu-Gi-Oh.
And in terms of that improvement journey as well, how have you found it? Like, do you feel like you're getting a lot better than you were before? Is there specific goals and breakpoints that you're giving yourself? Like, how's that improvement journey going for you?
Yeah, it's really hard to map. I feel like just like the Burning Abyss video from 2018, in like 2017, I got like real close to clearing at the WCQ that year. I missed on breakers, and I remember thinking like, oh my god, like that was the best I ever was at Yu-Gi-Oh, and I've never been able to get back there. And really, like in 2023, after just a couple of months of like intense testing, I was like, oh no, I'm like way ahead of that. And so I really don't feel that I am as good as I'm going to be, but I have no way to measure it because I've never been that good before. So we'll see. The unfortunate part of this whole thing is you just get so few tries to prove that you're very good. Like if I want specifically a YCS top, there's only like 4 of those a year, and there's only like, maybe 100 people who are able to clear at those events, and it's mostly the same 100 people over and over again. There's some of them are just completely negated by the fact that it's like the Kashtira Super Heavy Samurai format. So it is frustrating that there's not a lot of opportunities to kind of prove yourself, unless you want like a specific, I guess I would say like a reputation as like a consistently good player who like grinds online events and regionals and stuff, which is something I'm not super interested in.
And I would say as well, like in one of the more frustrating parts of that as well is sometimes it does like there is the consistency of you just top every event, but sometimes it also does come down to luck as well, right? So it's like sometimes, just like you said, you'll be at an event and it might just be tiebreakers that throws you out of it. It might just be randomly get that brick crown and that pushes you out of it as well. But while there is that side of it, in terms of your motivation again to continue getting better and stuff, has there ever been a point when you've just been like, can't be bothered with this anymore. You know what? I'll stay a casual player forever. Has there ever been a point where it's like it's been tenuous after maybe like after event or whatever?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I don't like playing formats that are really bad.
Yeah.
I did not pay a lot of attention to the post nationals Goki formats in like 2018. There are a number of formats where I was just like, nah, I gotta sit this one out. And thankfully they've been fewer and farther between as Yu-Gi-Oh has kind of evolved, but they haven't been zero.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I would say, I don't know, I'll open this to both of you guys, but I would say it feels as though if we take out just tier format and a little bit of like post tier format when Cash was tier 1 as well, it feels like formats are getting progressively more balanced, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'll let Joseph tee this one off as my cat is making a big fuss about something. So just bear with me very briefly for 1 second.
No
I
worries.
apologize. Yeah.
I guess so. It's hard to really get a good handle on it because like it is more balanced relative to itself. Like we're talking about like, oh, it's a very balanced format in the midst of there is one thing that every single person is playing.
Yeah.
Certainly I feel that they've gotten a lot more fun. Like
Yeah.
I think that in the last 4 years, Konami's done a really good job of being like, okay, clearly you all don't find like setting up a board with 15 negates on it fun. Like clearly you want like varied points of interaction, and you want a combo that is more free flowing than like a choke point that you saw in a YouTube video. And they have mostly done a good job with that. And then sometimes they print a Rise Heart and leave it legal for 9 months.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes it definitely falls off the wayside. And I guess my follow-up to that is like, so for example, this is a video I was going to do a really long time ago and I never released it, but in my opinion, the best ever designed deck is Virtual World. I think from a game design perspective, I think Virtual World is, if you ignore Calamities, the reason why I say if you ignore Calamities, because that's actually nothing to do with the archetype. That's just a weird card design that shouldn't be in the game. But I feel like Virtual, the way it's designed, the way it plays is so well balanced. I think even thematically speaking, I really like the way there's the monsters are reliant on the gates, which is how they get into the world and the lore and etc. Or the gates that they're guarding, etc., etc. I think that's really cool. And so if you were to look at all of the archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh, is there one you would point out and really say this is really, really good design? Like this is what Yu-Gi-Oh archetype should be?
You are really gonna like this one. The one that sticks out to me in modern memory is Rescue Ace. I really like that. Like, it's not just a combo you sit down and do. It's super malleable. It does so many different things. There's a huge deck building cost to it because you play all the terrible trap cards and then you draw them and then you get really mad. No, I like it a lot. I also like yeah, I guess I would say Rescue Ace is the big one. Yeah,
I would definitely agree with that. I think again, if you look at Rescue Ace, if you look at Virtual, it's the similarities where it's like, yeah, you have to play those cards that don't necessarily, they're not ideal to have in the deck. And it's funny because Joshua Schmidt was talking about this, where he was like, he actually doesn't like that design in some ways. He doesn't like decks where you have to play bricks and stuff in them, and it's like there's these cards you don't want to draw, and it gives those unbalanced scenarios where sometimes like I really hate my hand, sometimes I really love my hand, but I feel like we can see Konami is moving more and more towards that. Like even TR, as much as I slate TR and Cash, the idea behind both of those decks I actually think is done quite well. I think Cash, if it didn't banish face down specifically, I think Cash would actually be a lot better balanced. And TR, if all of the effects weren't so incredibly cracked, it would also be a lot better as well. So it's like, I do think both. But Dan, the question I just posed to Joe was that, is there a deck you can point at and you feel like that's really well designed deck, like really balanced modern Yu-Gi-Oh?
Sprite is one of the first ones that jumps to mind. I've always felt Sprite was incredibly powerful, but not too powerful. And thematically, like, it can be a bit overpowering in formats where you can allow yourself to just sort of snowball advantage off little guys, and Red and Carrot, great cards, but I don't know, like I feel like it's probably Sprite for me. I'm a big fan of I'm a big fan of how True Draco plays, not the floodgates. Like I'm a big fan of like the tribute and the continuous spells and traps off the monsters. Yeah, like those being the inbuilt removal. I think that's like incredibly innovative. The fact that people just played it with like shitloads of floodgates.
It wasn't ideal.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm. It's hard to think. There's a lot that do it really well, but a lot that do it awfully as well.
Yeah,
So
kind of going with that, if we were to conversely say, sorry, there's a fly here that keeps trying to fly in my face and it's getting on my nerves. If conversely, is there an archetype you can point at and say, you know what, this is why the heck did they even design them? So again, I'll go, for me, it's Cyframes. I think that is the stupidest archetype in game design. Like, everything about that archetype encourages me to not play Yu-Gi-Oh! Just norm summon my monster and poke because of how it's designed, for example. But yeah, it's an archetype you look at, you say, I think it's really, really badly designed.
My answer is very quick, and I don't think it's the entire archetype. So I'm just going to say this very quickly. Why the Magispect is purely because you can't target or destroy any of them. Why? What's all that about? But I think as an archetype, it's fine. I just don't understand that bit. That's my really quick answer. Joseph, I'm sorry I was interrupting you there.
Oh no, all good. It's really weird because I know I'll get flack for this, but I would say probably Pearly. It's just like It's really weird because if the deck doesn't get to go all the way off, it smacks of like a really cool, interesting, well-designed, like engaging deck that has a lot of options and a lot of very specific points of interaction.
Yeah.
But if you're not interrupted in a meaningful way and they get to like a 5-man noir, it just becomes like, did you draw a boarded kaiju the game? And that's... sucks. That's not fun.
As I draw 4 cards in your standby, so there's no way you'll get it back in the game as well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, Pearly's so weird, I think, because there was a point where everyone just thought, "Oh, this deck's awful" when it first came out, and then the Black Cat was announced. And it's like, "Oh, this is insane." But yeah, it felt like even if you out the Big Noir, like they just have so much follow up. Like you have to just like kill them, and for a lot of decks where Noir was the one to beat, that wasn't really possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not a fan of how Pearly's designed either. Really, to be honest, I think it's a cool archetype. It just stinks of like striker to me, but not in a good way.
It is just weird though, because it really does feel like if you interrupt them even once, like even with an Ash Blossom, it's like, oh, we're like really playing Yu-Gi-Oh here. They have to go Little Cat into the trap, and then you know they're gonna have 2 points of interaction and follow up, and it's like I can play through that, but if they get to the like big uninterrupted board, it's like, oh, this is over. This is not remotely interesting.
And it's funny because even though this is actually one of my favorite archetypes, I'd point at this for almost the exact same reason as Pearly. I think it's terrible design. It's Ignister. I used to love playing Ignister because it's unfair. Because it's like I get to a rival, either you have the out or you don't. I win. There's so much little mental stack. I was talking about this with my friend earlier today. I was like the mental stack in some decks. No, I was talking about with you. It was you, Dan. I was talking about
this. It was at locals.
Yeah, and I was saying that one of the reasons why I like certain decks is like I just like not having to think about anything in my opponent's head. It's like I've summoned a 5k Ignister. I know you can't out it, so it's just do you have a kaiju? If you don't, I guess I win now. And I think Pearly has that problem as well. And then also the whole every card leads to the same combo that pluses you 6 and ends on that. So it's like there's not even really thought. I think for diversity, it's cool to have at least one Towers deck in the game, just for the sake of there should always be different options. But I think Ignister's not how you should do it.
It's weird because like I dislike exactly that type of Pearly, but I don't have a problem with formats where Pearly is good. It's like, oh, sometimes you're just going to have to run up against it.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. I guess a testament to that we're not just printing Apoclephor Towers anymore.
Well, in that same vein, then, for example, like I'm someone who I think I've got a different opinion to everyone. I really like Shifter as a card. I don't actually think Shifter's a problem. What would you say then? Are you guys against Shifter being in the format or existing in the game?
It's a difficult one. I look at Shifter a lot of the ways I look at Droll and Lockbird. It's like in the formats where it's broken, it's insane, and other times it's just okay. So it's really hard for me to say how I feel about Dimension Shifter. I don't think it's as good as everyone says it is. I've seen many tier players play through Shifter when it was broken. I've seen many Fire King players play through Shifter. But I do think it's a great card and pretty broken. And it just gives some decks like Flu and Kashtira like that have had that sort of like hit on the ban list. Gives them sort of like a stepping stone to being a little bit better than they are. But I'm not in the camp that I think Dimensional Shifter needs to be banned, but I completely agree with people that do look at it that way.
Yeah, what do you think, Joe?
I think it's a really frustrating card. I
No, I
have no
completely
problem with
understand
it going away forever.
that. I do completely get the mentality. Like, I hate drawing like Bird, so I do see it.
Do you know what I always think about cards like that? I always think it's just, but if it wasn't in the game, like I don't really want to play against like as annoying as Shifter and Draw are. I don't really want to play in a format where like super heavy got to just do what they want and there was no Shifter or Draw or like Snake Eyes. So it's like that's why for me it's like I really want them to be there just because I do appreciate there being some sort of hard stop. I mean the ideal scenario would be Konami just design decks more balanced so that you don't need those kind of like band-aid fixes. But that I think that's my want for cards like that, because even Draw, for example, is another card that I actually think is fine. I think it needs to exist personally. But moving on a little bit from the Yu-Gi-Oh talk, there's a section of our podcast which I really wanted to go into because it reflects this amazing podcast that MBT runs, and it's called Am I the Arsehole? So this one is an interesting one. And it reads, "Am I the asshole? I want to sleep in the same room as my boyfriend in my parents' house." So, I'm gonna try and paraphrase it because it is a little bit of a long one. But I, 20-year-old female, have been dating my boyfriend Michael, 21-year-old male, for a year and a couple months now. I used to live in a dorm at college, which my parents partially paid for. My boyfriend sleeps over about 3 to 6 times a week. My parents know. He's met my family several times and they like him a lot and trust him to be loving to me always. However, when he comes to my parents' house, where I tend to stay at summer holidays, etc., he has to sleep on the couch in the basement while I sleep on a full bed upstairs. If we are alone in my bedroom together, my father will passively aggressively walk by and open the door. This December, I left the country to live abroad. The last time I saw him was Christmas, and he had to sleep on the same couch in the basement. I hadn't seen him for 7 months, and it broke my heart to not be around him. A big reason why I want to sleep next to him is because I want alone time with him. I live in a small house, this is our parents' house, and there's no privacy except the bedrooms. Because my family is uncomfortable with PDA and they're Catholic, I do not like the feeling of someone else being in the room because we'll get judged. I am also fairly certain that they don't want us to sleep next to each other because they're afraid we'll have sex in the house. And then the last thing that's relevant, everything else is not relevant, is my boyfriend's father said once, "If you're going to fornicate in my house, please do not do it when I am home." So what do we think? Is she the asshole for wanting to sleep on the same bed as her boyfriend in her parents' house?
Oh.
What do you think?
I have some thoughts on this. Joe, do you want to start this or shall I tee off?
Yeah, why don't you go for it?
So I don't think she's an asshole for wanting it, because they're 21 years old. You know, they're adults legally. Like, it's perfectly natural to want to spend time with your partner. But at the same time, living in your parents' house, you kind of have to follow their rules, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I do think if you could, get hotels, things like that. I don't know. It's tricky. She's not an arsehole for wanting it, but she should, appreciate that when you're living in someone else's house, unfortunately, what they say kind of goes. Like, I mean, I've been there when I was younger and, in my prime, so to speak. But yeah, I don't think she's an arsehole. I think that's where I land on it.
What do you think, Joe?
I have had almost this exact same experience.
Okay.
Which I don't know how to say it. It's kind of gauche, but like, parents have to operate under this like clear delusion that their child is just not having sex.
Yeah.
Like that they're never getting laid ever in a million years. And it's like that illusion is just completely shattered if they're sleeping in the same bed.
Yeah.
And I get it. I was dating my wife when I was around this age. I think I was like 22 and she was 22 as well. And we'd go to visit her parents for like the holidays and they would have me sleep on, it wasn't the couch, but it was like a guest bed. I remember being like, this is so unfair. And then I was like, but I live with her. You know, what am I really going to complain about? I feel like this sucks for sure, and I understand her being like upset about it.
Yeah.
But like, she sleeps with this guy 6 times a week. Like, just wait for the trip to be over, go back to college, done. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I think it is. I don't think, like you said, I don't think she's the asshole for wanting it, and I don't really think the parents are that much of an asshole for keeping up appearances that, you know, they're not having sex.
I do want to add as well, like, him respecting the rules of the parents is also brownie points for him in the parents' eyes. It's going to be good. It's going to be a good thing in the long run.
Yeah.
I know I didn't do that. I would sneak upstairs.
Oh my gosh. Did you ever get caught?
No. I'm quiet. I'm agile.
Yeah. I can't imagine. Yeah, I agree with you guys, but I don't think she's an asshole. But yes, their house, their rules, and I think as well. One of the things about the nature of sex is that even if you're using protection, there is a chance of pregnancy. She's in college. She can't afford her own place, I'm assuming, because she has to go and stay back with her parents 2-3 months a year. As far as I can see, she doesn't say like she's super rich, which means that if they also were to get pregnant, it probably would be a burden on her parents as well. And so even though they are probably free to smash as much as they like when they're in college, I don't think it's too much to ask for the parents to say that, you know what, when you're here, just keep your pants on. I don't think it's unreasonable. I also think as well, like, I would get it, because if I had a child, I wouldn't want them to be having sex in my house. Like, the youngest, like, that's my baby. Like, what are you doing to my daughter? Like, or my son, like, yeah. So, I do get it. Like, one of the things that I remember reading, it's weird, is that you have to realize that your parents are your parents to you, but their own people as well. And yeah, you wouldn't. I wouldn't even want my little sister to have sex. I don't have a little sister, but if I had a little sister, I wouldn't want her to have sex in the same house as me. It's like, I'd feel like, what? No. So, yeah, I definitely get the parents' perspective on this. I think she should understand. And yeah, I think 3 months of abstinence, yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
It'll be hard, if you'll pardon the pun.
Yes.
Or just, I mean, honestly, like, he's sleeping downstairs. The parents aren't in the house all the time. Wait for him to go out.
There's windows.
You know. Exactly.
I'm still...
Maybe be like, they go into town, like they have an appointment or something. You get, 25 minutes. Come on. Everyone was in high school
more than
once.
enough time.
Just use some of that creativity.
Yeah, to be fair, I met my wife after I had already moved out, but I feel like I would have been terrible. I remember I actually had the discussion with my dad. This is when me and my wife were still engaged, and I was like, oh, so if my wife was to sleep over in the house, can we like sleep in like, at the time she was my wife, but if I was like, she can sleep over the house, can we like sleep in the same room? My dad was like, what? He's like, don't ever dare. And I was just like, oh, okay. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I was just like, all right, sure, like, we go home, we'll just enjoy anyway, but yeah, I do understand. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's a shame though. I think it's a shame for the boyfriend, because he's definitely, you can tell he's trying his best to look good, but
yeah. Shout out to the boyfriend. He looks like he's trying to get some brownie points in.
Yeah,
he's doing what he has to. Yeah.
Yes, he is. But
I know we are close.
Yes,
we are close to wrapping up the episode. I do have a couple of questions for you, MBT. One of them is, for anyone who may not know, you've played Yu-Gi-Oh! With a member of Congress.
Yes.
Would you be able to expand on that a little bit for anyone who doesn't know? Because someone reminded me of this earlier today, and I remember watching the video. It's so wild.
Yeah, it's wild. It was very strange that it happened. It was Maxwell Frost, who is one of the House reps from Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the youngest members to ever be elected, if not the youngest. In America, what's happened is all the baby boomers ran politics forever, and then like no Gen X people ever entered politics for some reason.
Yeah.
And so now we've got like millennials and Gen Z people doing it who are finally aging into the process, and he's one of those. And I think he posted maybe 6 months ago some interview in which he mentioned that on the campaign trail, one of his friends had like gotten him into Yu-Gi-Oh while they were like sitting in like the campaign bus, and I just like shot my shot on Twitter one night, and I was like, hey, you want to like come on stream? And I mean, I live close enough to DC. I was like, you know what? Why don't I just? Do you mind if I come and we film something?
Yeah.
And he was super receptive. We did. He played Earth Machine, which was
Oh
hilarious.
gosh.
And I've spoken with him occasionally since. We had planned. I'm really upset this didn't happen. On going to an OTS that was opening in DC and doing like an event for Pride Month. That was going to have like a tournament attached. And then like right before we were like the weekend before we were planning on doing this, they overturned Roe v. Wade. And he was like, sorry, buddy, got to hit the campaign trail. Like I have to talk a million places now. And I was like, but he was really cool. I'd love to do something like that again. He will occasionally send me a message that's like, he'll be like, hey, pick this up. And it'll be like a new piece of Earth Machine. And I'll be like, cool. Awesome.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it is weird to think about that as well. That like, yeah, because like in his main life, he's like a member of Congress and in politics. But then it's like, yeah, this is also Earth Machine guy playing Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff. That is pretty cool.
I think as a child, I just sort of assumed that every like a politician and everything was this like untouchable, like bred from birth to be scandal-free kind of person, and now like that elected officials are our age, we get to learn like their opinions on like Kingdom Hearts, and that's real weird. I don't know how to really deal with that.
Yeah,
Wild for sure.
I can't remember what her name is, but there was this female politician that was playing League. She's quite popular. I know Republicans hate her.
AOC.
Yes, yeah, exactly. For example, yeah, like there was a point when
It was like 2 years ago. She was like, "Oh my god, I've been trying forever. I've been hard stuck. I finally got out of silver." She got like gold 5. It's like,
yeah, it's quite crazy. Yeah, it'll be interesting when we get like the first president who like, I don't know, decides to talk about how they're a gamer or something though. I don't know, that might be a while from now, but still it'll be interesting to see what that's like.
I don't know.
the current people in power have not used computers, so
the saddest part about that is that it is almost believable. Like, that. Oh dear, yeah. I think the politics podcast will be the next one that we'll need to set up and have a chat about because that's a whole other kind of worms. But guys, with that, we are gonna call a wrap up. We are literally on the hour mark. We're gonna call a wrap up to this episode of the Yu-Gi-Oh show. It has been an absolute blast.
Pleasure.
MBT, have you got anything to say before we close this one out?
not much. I mean, thank you both for having me. I really appreciated it. This was fun. I liked it. Even though I'm sure I got like way rambly. I do want to plug the pod if you all have not heard yet of Will of the Council, COUNCEL on all platforms where you get your podcasts, including Apple now. We finally got that fixed. And
Let's go.
Will of the Council Premium on Patreon for bonus episodes. We got Farfa on last week, and it was fun.
Awesome. Yes, it will be in the description, guys. It's definitely going to be go check out because it is awesome. It's also awesome. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's definitely been helping me out with my card journeys recently. So yes, but yeah, with that, guys, we're going to close off this episode. We will talk to you all soon. Peace.